Good evening and welcome to Talking Point. I'm your host, Professor Corey Wright, coming to you live from the studios of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation in Accra. We come to you live this and every Sunday with issues of national concern and engage you in discussions for informed decision making. We are streaming live on GBC Ghana online, on Facebook at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and as always we welcome those who are listening to us on Unique 95.7. Well, we've all heard the expression New Year, New You, but today it's New Year, New Talking Point set. And sometime during this year, GBC and Talking Point will be celebrating a milestone. And so we have approached some organizations asking for some support to be able to revamp our set. And we are grateful to UPSA for being able to respond to our call and provide us with this set. So thank you to UPSA. For this Sunday, we'd like to talk about something a little bit more important. It lies at the heart of our nation's development, and that's education. As a foundation for any thriving society, we all know that education shapes the future of our economy, it shapes our workforce and our collective progress. But it's also an area that faces persistent challenges and demands innovative solutions. So tonight we're going to be joined by a retired Vice Chancellor, Professor Abenigofen Yokoamate, who is going to discuss the state of Ghana's education, its challenges, and its opportunities. We encourage you to send messages during the show to our WhatsApp number 020-380-3174. And as I mentioned earlier, with me in the studio is a retired Vice Chancellor of the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies, Accra, Professor Abenigo F. Amate. He's not yet retired. I think he has a couple more years before he reaches 60. So welcome, Prof.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to start with the vetting process, just to get your thoughts. We'll talk a lot about all sorts of things tonight, but I think the vetting for the Minister of Education, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, went pretty smoothly. And I'm sure you followed it keenly. But since then, there have been some skirmishes around the vetting process. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on some of the issues that have cropped up. I know that the Speaker of Parliament had some very strong words. He said he was shocked and scandalized by some of the things that were going on. So are you surprised, and what are some of your thoughts about that?
Thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations to all those who say through, especially for the Education Minister. Obviously, I will be interested. Brilliant gentleman, Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, and of course the others as well. Well, I followed the vetting bits and pieces. Obviously, I have some things to do, but I saw what happened in Parliament. Now, obviously, all parties have agreed that it is not necessarily the best for our democracy. But let's just say we are learning, and so hopefully it shouldn't happen again.
Okay, so as an educational institution that teaches governance, ethical leadership, public service, what lessons did you learn from that in terms of how we will inculcate that in our learning for our students?
Okay, so first of all, it means that we have a long way to go, and we must understand we are just about, from 1982 to now, just about 33 years. So we have some learning to do. I do hope students realize that these are not things that they should justify and then replicate, as it were, and that they realize that even adults make mistakes, and maybe they should be the shining light to say, okay, this is wrong, and therefore we don't have to follow or copy such behaviors. But as I said, we are learning, and I'm sure the parties involved themselves have admitted that something went wrong. So we are all learning. Yes.
Okay. So let's turn attention to education and the education sector.
That's more comfortable.
So you've been in the education sector for a very long time. So how would you assess today the education sector in terms of access, in terms of quality, relevance in the job market? What is your assessment?
Okay, so for access, I think we are doing pretty well. It's interesting to know that as recently as 2005 thereabout, in fact 2010, the youth literacy rate was about 71%. In less than a decade, it went up to 86%. So certainly we are doing well on that front. If you look at tertiary enrollment figures or tertiary institutions, 1990 we had just 3 universities, just 3. Fast forward to 2025, we have over 100. The gross tertiary ratio then was just about 2.5%. By 2015, it was about 16.5%. But having said that, it simply means that it also means that we have some things to do, even the access. If you look at the rural and urban areas, the urban areas have more access compared to rural areas. In terms of gender, same. And in terms of resource allocation, too, same. You tend to have the resources concentrated in the urban areas. You tend to have more girls going to school in the urban areas, and you tend to have a lot of facilities also going to the urban areas. So yes, we have increased access, especially at the primary level and secondary level, but there is still the gap between the rural and urban areas, and I think those are the areas that we've got to improve upon.
Okay, it's interesting you said that, because there's a global education monitoring report by UNESCO, which had to really address the disparities in the delivery of education was their concern. And that report indicated that the majority of children, almost 80%, still do not acquire basic skills in literacy and numeracy by the time they reach the end of the primary school. And it identified the inconsistent delivery of education across the country, with public schools in disadvantaged and rural areas bearing the brunt of the weak provision. So that kind of sums up what you were saying. But what do you think are some of the solutions here?
Let's commend governments for the accessibility that we have and all of that. But obviously there are challenges. And the first issue you have to look at, giving resources to especially the rural areas, and ensuring that they have infrastructure, they have textbooks, the teachers are motivated, there is better supervision, there is better leadership. So we know what the problem is, we know what the situation is. All we need to do is now to focus on these areas. I mean, we should have a situation now where our children are still sitting under trees in rural areas. It shouldn't be. So in terms of the allocation of resource itself, we now have to make a conscious effort to ensure that infrastructure is available, the textbooks are available, the teachers are available. I mean, teacher deployment and retention is so key. And of course, motivation and morale. More importantly, having leadership and decentralize and ensure that we have good monitoring systems in place. Okay, so
if you look back, what do you think have been the key challenges in education over the years, and how have they evolved to now?
So obviously the first one is accessibility. Whilst we say it has improved, I mentioned that you still have the gender disparities, you still have the rural-urban disparities, you still have the resource allocation challenges that you have. Aside that, now once we try to solve the access situation, it moves to the quality of education, and I think that is where we've had a lot of challenges. At the center of all of this is the teacher, and so teacher training is key, and teacher motivation and morale is key. Again, leadership is key, providing infrastructure is key. The next leg is, of course, the monitoring and evaluation, and ensuring that they do their job. But these days we are moving towards the issue of digital literacy, and a few years ago I read something about a teacher teaching ICT in one of the schools in the rural areas and using stones to teach them about computers. Now obviously these are things that we should easily resolve. It doesn't take much to ensure that there's electricity and at least a single computer she ought to teach our students. I dare say that these are the bold decisions that we have to make, and it's not rocket science. These are things that we can easily do. Aside that efficiency and effectiveness, those who are monitoring, what do they do? The issue of technology, do we have it there? Then you come to issues about quality that I mentioned earlier. So these are some of the problems that the challenges that we face, that we have to resolve. Of course, there is always the almighty resource constraint. So funding to our schools and to education is key. I mean, no nation, we know this, no nation can develop without education. Education is a leveler. It makes all the difference. It is what will take somebody from the rural area and make him a president or make her a president. So it's a family planning tool as well, because the more you keep the girl child in school, the more likely that you are not going to have teenage pregnancy. And by the time they are 20, 30 and they know what they are about, they can have family planning, all of that. So we know what the issues are. It's education. So these challenges like quality, like access, like efficiency, effectiveness, like technology, like resource allocation, these are things that we can easily resolve.
We say a lot about needing resources and looking for innovative funding and innovative ways to fund education, but it's not as easy as that. All these government funding can only go so far. How difficult or not is it for some of these rural areas to be able to find funding to rise above some of the allocations that they are given by the government?
So first, in priority is important. So yes, government would have to do its bit. Of course, they're the major funding of all of this, if not the sole funding. I think beyond that, stakeholder engagement is necessary. So we need to bring all stakeholders on board and decide which way to go. The third part is the decentralization that we sought to do. Whilst it may have coordination challenges, it's key for parents to play a key role in educating their children. Sometimes it's not just about money. Now, when I say resources, it's not about throwing resources at problems. They are basic. Within the community, what do we do to ensure that we have good education for our children? You rightly mentioned that government put a lot of resources. At least that's the impression that we get. But if we do, then it doesn't look like it's getting to, especially those who need the most, the rural areas. And they don't need much. Providing a simple classroom and having electricity and having computer and ensuring that there are textbooks these days, even with the digital information, you can easily have the materials that they need. And if we prioritize well, it should be easy to do this. You recall, we have GET fund that supposed to initially was to fund tertiary education, which now allocates a lot of resources for the primary and basic education and all of that. We've got to have proper monitoring and evaluation to ensure that those monies are really getting to where they're supposed to go. When you buy anything on the tax we pay, they say a percentage is for GET fund, supposed to be for education. We really have to look at it, whether it's truly getting into education.
So let's pivot a little bit and talk about STEAM or STEM. There's a lot of emphasis right now. I know you mentioned AI, IT and all that, but there's also now a lot of growing emphasis on STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And some are even advocating for STEAM, where they want arts added into it. What are your thoughts about those kind of pushes and focus areas?
Earlier on, you asked a question about the challenges and the evolution out of that. And now, part of the evolution we've had because of the challenges, one is the issue of the use of technology, which could help resolve a lot of challenges. So the use of, especially for the tertiary sector, the use of AI is key to ensure that, of course, we can do a lot with that. But aside that, the evolution is also bringing the issue about private institutions where they are contributing to education as well. There is the issue of refocusing on STEM, which is your question that you asked. And the idea is that you are getting more people going to school. It's like we are offloading the problem to the front burner now, where you are getting a lot of people who are educated, yet they are not getting jobs. But the research shows you that those who do science, mathematics, and technology, they are more able to help society and the economy, which is what is leading to the focus on STEM, and again on entrepreneurship, and of course other areas like industry, building skills, and those are the things that are leading to that. So the STEM is so important, because once you have that, it helps the economy. A country develops most when they have a lot of engineers, science-based programs, and so it's part of the evolution we are getting, that now we should channel our resources to the STEM areas rather than just producing students who at the end of the day say there are no jobs.
So you believe that there are enough jobs to actually accommodate all those coming out in the STEM areas?
For the STEM areas, it should be better. Now, a simple thing that we should look at, you are producing averagely about 100,000 students every year for tertiary institutions. The public sector, I'm not sure, is able to absorb more than 10,000. So you are expecting the private sector to absorb, which is almost impossible. So the idea is, when you have people who are trained and they have skills and entrepreneurship and STEM developed areas, such people are able to, as it were, employ themselves. They become more entrepreneurial, and their contribution to the economy is better. In fact, you even need, even the public sector, you need more engineers, you need more science-based trained people that you can easily absorb more than other areas. So we should look at our needs. You see, now this should be policy driven, and there should be coherence in terms of the policy we have. What are we training? Who are we training? In other areas, they put more resources into tertiary education that are training people for particular areas. So if we have proper research done, and we know that in the next 10 years, these are the kind of skills we require for the economy, then universities that train such people, you give them more resources, and you encourage more students to go into those areas. So therefore, they train people for the economy, rather than just allowing students to just decide to do whatever program they want to do, and at the end of the day, when they finish, they complain about no jobs.
Yeah, but career counseling is not a very prevalent thing in universities right now. So if what you're saying would be considered, that would mean that there will be some sort of shift also in people having career counseling offices that can actually guide our students into what they want to do. What role do you see for public-private partnerships, and would any of that help in transforming some of our things in education?
Okay, before that, you mentioned career counseling. I recall my days in the University of Ghana in the early 90s, 1989 to 92. We actually had the Career and Guidance Center, and students are supposed to go there for counseling. But I think that it's late in the day, because at that point, you've already been admitted for a particular program. So that's why I mentioned the issue about policy coherence. It should start from the basic school, at least from the secondary schools, coming to universities. It's key from that area. Again, you realize that when they get to GHS and they write the exams, they already go into science, into business, into arts and whatever they want to do. So we must start from that angle before they get to the universities. So before they even make a choice, they already know, they already offer them the counseling. I recently had a very interesting scenario where somebody, they brought the grades, and you could see the strength is in the general arts areas, and the mother was insisting that she wants the son to become a doctor, so she must go with science. Now obviously you could see that that's not the child's interest. So I counseled and said, your child doesn't seem to want to be a doctor. If you do other things, so you offer counseling like this, and I think that we should start from the basic level, where you offer research counseling.
In some countries, you are admitted to the university, and career counseling helps you determine, even if you're doing a course like communication, there are different courses that you can pick. I think the restraint in our system is that the courses are predetermined for you. What are your thoughts about that? Is there a possibility that the students will be allowed to eventually pick courses within the area they want to major in, or is this, restraint or predetermination of their program the best way to go?
Yeah, you are very right. So you enter into a program at the university, and then they determine the courses that you should take. I think that we should be a bit more flexible and allow students to pick courses according to their choice based on counseling, because 17, 18 years that they are now getting to know what exactly they want to do. Even at the university level, there should be some flexibility so that students can make the right choices, because they are now getting to know exactly what they want to do with their lives, instead of just predetermining for the students. But you mentioned the issue about industry collaborations, which is very key, because one of the accusations leveled against universities is the fact that they are training people who are not fit for the job market. It's a whole debate. Some will say we train you to be a critical thinker and not necessarily for a particular job. But industry is also saying you are not giving us the kinds of people that we need, which is why the collaboration between industry and the tertiary institution are key. I think these days one of the things that GTech does, when we develop a new program, Tertiary Education Commission, when we develop a new program, they want to see that there is some collaboration between the institution and industry that has been factored in, at least from UPSA. I know that we're doing that a lot. You don't have any program that there's no industry input. But beyond that, you must also bring in industry to share ideas and experiences. We must move away from the rote learning, what we call chew and pour, which you did. You just chew and then you pour. We must move away from that kind of learning and move to problem solving, critical thinking. You mentioned, for example, that the UNESCO report say that the children we are producing, 80% of them don't have literacy skills.
Which is your memory
skills. And that is a blot on us, because I think that by the age of 9 years, a student should be able to read and write. And so we must know what we want. So critical thinking, and numeracy skills, literacy skills, and digital skills, these are things that we must focus on for the young minds. And once they have it, you can't take it away from them.
Yeah. So if you have a young male or female watching the program today and thinking about going into tertiary education, how would you advise them in terms of navigating the system and being able to prepare themselves for their future self?
First of all, I would say be open-minded. Be open-minded. What you are going to do at the first degree is not necessarily what you are going to use to work. That is why you can find engineers being bankers. You can find accountants going to something else, communication and things like that. What's important is that the ability to think, critical thinking and problem solving, which is why I emphasize that we must begin to move away from rote learning, and just from the teacher's notes to the students' answer booklet, then the teacher marks. It doesn't pass through anybody's. It doesn't go through our heads. We must get to that stage where you have to solve problems, especially with AI now, because it's so easy now when you give an assignment for students to just go and chat GBT to produce the answers for you. We must begin to ask questions that students would have to think, and in so doing, they must have the problem solving abilities, and that's the way to move forward. So the focus should not be like I'm going to get an A. The focus should be I'm acquiring certain skills, and between the time I enter the university and the time I come out, I should be able to say I have acquired skills that could help me in life's journey.
It's interesting because in the olden days, but people of my father's age, degrees like English degree would make you become a journalist, but so there were, and that would make you probably a well-rounded individual. So those are interesting ideas. But let's talk about some of the quality of the students that are coming into universities. I think some faculty members in many of the universities that I know of almost lament a level of decrease, maybe critical thinking or inquiry from the students. So as we try to align our education system with the 21st century, what kind of things do we have to look for? I mean, we have the AI, we have internet skills, but how do we balance that against basic common sense? How do we balance that against things that are like discussions in the classroom, student inquiry, critical thinking?
It's a challenge. Yes, you heard a faculty complain and say the quality of students that we are getting these days are not exactly what you are looking for. But interestingly, they are presenting their results and they are passing. And then the universities will say, it is not our business to be teaching you things that you should have known before coming. And all of that. Now, it's real and present danger. And I say this because of what I've seen, what I've known. In the past, not too long, in the distant past, if somebody had an MBA from any of the universities, you will know the worth of the MBA. So some institutions started employing MBA holders to teach. Then they found out that though they have the MBA certificate, they really don't
have the depth
of an MBA graduate. So then they said, let's move to MPhil, Master of Philosophy, with the idea that they are full-time students, they will be research focused and do well. Now you are getting complaints that even those with the MPhil, there's still a challenge. And so now they say to be a lecturer, you must have what? PhD. The thing is that you are getting, it's alleged that there are contractors around. And the typical MBA student is also working.
Full-time.
MBA students never full-time. And the universities, because they are resource constrained, they also need the money. So we are running the programs weekend, evening, and all of that. And we are getting more people into the classrooms because we need the money, because money is not coming from government and the universities must run. It's a catch-22 situation. Whilst we are getting lots of them pay their fees, we are also not able to monitor and ensure that the quality that we are producing is the best. And so here's a case that they don't have time, and then they're getting certificates, and then later we turn around to complain. Now you are going to get that same situation with MPhil, and then very soon get to PhD and all kinds of things. And that's the situation that we have. How do we resolve this? Now, first of all, monitoring evaluation is key. And quality assurance should be number one. There are issues of accreditation, but that's another bit. That's all together. But quality assurance should be key. We must insist on the right things being done. Like my previous council chairman would say, you must do what is right, not what is easy. So we must insist on the quality assurance and say that yes, we need the resources, but if you don't deserve to come in, you will not. And two, if you don't deserve to go out, you will not go out. For students, once you insist, they will comply, they will attend to it. So the onus lies on us, not on the students, to make sure that we do what we are supposed to do.
So one of the flagship promises of this government was free tertiary education for at least the first year. What are your thoughts about the implementation of the policy?
You put me on the spot. So even though you did mention free SHS, I'll try to link the two. Now, don't even like using the term free SHS. Okay, it's free to the consumers, the users, but it's not free to government. Somebody has to pay. So we, the taxpayers, we are paying for it. So we must understand that we pay for it. When you go to a place like China, they also say free education, but they have the resources to the extent that even some universities in China, they are giving free lunch every day, thousands of students, and not just lunch. I mean, they go for buffet and they have it every day because the resources are there. So in principle, so long as you have the resources and education is so important to us, why not? The question that arises is whether or not we have the resources to do so, and I think that's what led to the debate about should it be free for everyone, or should some people pay for it. So that's the debate. It's obvious that there are still challenges with free SHS. Even the most ardent supporters would admit that there are still things to be done. I mean, just behind us we have PSEC, which is supposed to be the best among the best in Ghana. But because I work so close to PSEC, we pay them a visit, and we see that they have challenges, and that is PSEC. So I'm asking myself, if PSEC has these challenges, then what about the others? For example, they are on ECG, prepaid. Now, if government doesn't produce or doesn't provide power and the lights go off, they don't have money to do so because nobody is paying anything. So these are challenges that you must resolve. When you say it's free, then make sure the lights are on for the students where they will need it. If something like that, a problem with furniture, you must have it on time. If you have a problem with food, you must have it on time. So once you decide and say free, then make sure that you have the resources. So that leads me to the tertiary, the free tertiary education. First of all,
for first years.
For first years. First of all, so you say for first years. That means that second, third, and final years, they would have to pay. That's what it means. Now I'm listening to the argument carefully, and government says the reason why they make the first year free is that when they get to the first year, they expect that second, third, and final years they must have the student's loan, and by the time they get to the first year, they have not accessed the loans, so they want to cushion them. Good, but the issue arises. At the time they are getting to first year, government still doesn't give money to the universities, so they still would have to be registered, and government will reimburse the universities, or those who have may pay, and then government refunds the money. If that is the case, then I do not think that we have to provide for the first years. Then the same students can go and be registered and let the loan scheme reimburse the universities, because as we said, it's about resources, and we have challenges with senior high, and since it's not, you are not giving them free tertiary education for the 4 years, it's only the first year, and we say they can take the loan for second, third, and final years, then it should be possible for they taking the loan first year. And I say, how do they do that? The same way that the government will reimburse the universities after students are registered, the same way the loan company, whether it's NIT or whoever, should still reimburse the universities. And the thing is that I pity government. You need a lot of resources for basic education. We mentioned the enrollment rate and all of that, and I think that it should not be negotiable. Every child must be in school, and I'm more concerned about the gap between the rural and urban areas. Even within the urban areas, if you look at the private schools, the students they churn out compared to the public schools, there's a gap. And the funny thing is that the public schools have trained teachers. These are the ones that they have been trained with the taxpayers' money. How then do we have the private schools doing better? Motivation, a lack of supervision, and all of that. So we need to do a lot of work at the basic level and ensure that when they come to the university, no problem. But I would suggest that instead of saying free, let the loan companies reimburse, let the university register the students, let the loan companies reimburse the universities at the end of the day, so that those monies can go to the basic schools.
Okay, so you were talking about some of the challenges. I think the reason why it's important to also focus on the pre-tertiary is because those students are fed into the tertiary, so that whole value chain has to be looked at. But what was a few things that when I was researching, some of these things came out, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Recommending training teachers by regions, classrooms that don't have access to electricity, out-of-school rates for children who are with or without disabilities, the tertiary gross enrollment that you mentioned earlier, participation rate in organized learning for some people before entering primary school, the proportion of children achieving minimum proficiency levels in reading at the end of the primary education, and learning poverty among children at the end of primary age. And these are a lot of issues. If you had to organize them in terms of the top 3 that should be focused on, what would you recommend?
My priority will be that focus on basic school and ensure that no overcrowding, the infrastructure, they have basic textbooks, there's a learning materials that they need, the teacher is motivated, and there's proper supervision. When you get it right at the basic, that is pre-tertiary levels, you are likely to get it right at the other levels. And I mentioned policy coherence. Once we ensure that, in fact, at one of the things that I read was the fact that the average teacher-student ratio pre-tertiary is 1:30. I dare say it could be more. In other places, about 13, those who are advanced. Now, you are managing 40 to 50 people in the class. You have this overcrowding. There no proper ventilation, no proper furniture, no proper infrastructure. And then they have no textbooks. And then with all the problems that they are coming with and all of that, if we resolve those problems, where we ensure that the minimum class size, a good teacher, well trained in that class. So we are looking at the teacher training, the training they give to our teachers, get them in the classroom, ensure that they are properly supervised, they are motivated, and we get it right at the primary, JHS, and senior high. We are on our way to success.
So if we want to discuss how government can maybe strengthen instruction, how they can strengthen the materials or textbooks, how they can strengthen supervision, in the classrooms, would you say that if we did that, we would be on our way to the delivery of a systematic nationwide education delivery system?
We are going to meet the SDG 4 by the UN. If we do that constantly and we painstakingly and patiently invest in those areas, pre-tertiary, that is primary, junior high, and senior high. If we focus on those areas and invest well and ensure that, like you mentioned earlier, numeracy and literacy rates, and we ensure that every child can read and write, and we have critical thinking skills embedded in them. When we develop these things, it's easy. Now, if you recall, when we were growing up, people will finish O levels, ordinary levels. They even choose to go and work because they are trained. And then when they make money, they decide to then continue to polytechnic and to universities. That's how come you got a Accra Workers College and all kinds of things. Because those people, they could actually, they are well trained because they got good education. I mean, at the time, if you are an A-level student, and imagine you have ordinary levels. Out of those who go to do the A-levels, some of them still don't go to university. Meanwhile, they are the best among the O-level students, but they still find work to do, and then they take their time and have education. Why? Because the beginning was solid, foundational skills was very good, and you have people who were just Form 4 middle school level certificate, they had it, and yet the kind of things they could do because they have very good foundation. I think that those are the areas that we must return to, and of course and adapt it to modern areas like technology and do these things so well.
Do we still have Cuthbert?
We have TVET.
TVET, okay.
In recent times, there has been some talk about TVET. In fact, I think the government is investing in TVET. I think that's a very good thing, because you see that when we started the junior high, when we abolished O levels and A levels, the idea when we started, every junior high was supposed to have a lab, and they were to do all kinds of things so that those people who will not go to the traditional secondary school would then divert. Mind you, when we had O levels and A levels, at the time we had the polytechnics, and they were very hands-on, middle-level management. They were very strong in terms of training people for what we now call the STEM areas, like engineering and these kind of things. Now, with time, we took out the lab system from the junior high schools, and then we started producing the usual students who want to go to university, become a lawyer, a doctor, and so we neglected that part. Now, thankfully, we now have TVET. We must emphasize and insist, you don't necessarily have to go to a traditional university when you could easily acquire skills at TVET, and such people are readily employed. They acquire skills that are very useful, and then they can still continue to go and do civil engineering, to go and do electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and all the other stuff that are available to them.
So what about the development of learning outcomes? Is that critical to the entire process?
But definitely. Now we have the government education reforms. Just this evening, I see the government has come up with a committee to engage on the way for education. But there is already the strategic education agenda also, 2018 to 2030, and then the reform agenda and all of that. Part of the process is the fact that there has to be learning outcomes. That this is what we expect. By the time you finish class 3, we expect these outcomes. No student should finish class 3 and is not able to read and write. So those are the learning outcomes. And we must insist that the way to evaluate teachers must be based on these things. And to do so effectively means that you also need to monitor and evaluate.
Okay. So I'm going to go to some questions that are coming in. One is from Bridget Ben-Maima. Very important discussion. Good evening. Just to confirm that the University of Ghana still has a vibrant careers and counseling directory that helps students to identify their strengths and areas that need improvement. We provide career development programs for students who enroll in them while in school, and this also prepares them for the world of work. The place of such services cannot be emphasized. I perfectly agree that career guidance before the tertiary level is crucial. And then you have, there's no name, but it says, good evening, Prof. I'm enjoying all your points, but this point that you said, students should not necessarily concentrate on getting A, but should concentrate on problem solving, which I think is perfect. But a situation where you are not able to make the grades, then what matter? What problem can you solve? Will you not be able, because you won't be able to further your education? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I said not necessarily. To make an A is good, first class is good, but first class should just be after you have learned so well problem skills, and then you make an A. But to make an A without the ability to solve problems itself is a problem. So we must rotate ourselves and say, okay, I'm trained well, and on top of that I made an A. So I'm not by any means suggesting that the grades are important, because and I'm a teacher, if you fail, we fail you. So
I think you were saying that within the context of true and poor. If you get an A, know why you got an A, don't forget it tomorrow. So another question, apart from STEM programs, how can the tertiary institutions ensure that their programs are relevant to the needs of the labor market and equip students with the skills that are required to drive economic growth and development?
Yes. I mentioned that I think the US and some European countries, there's consistent research as to what industry needs, and then resources are provided for the universities who are offering those programs. So the allocation of resources to universities is based on you meeting national need. What we have now is that universities just decide to develop a program and then offer it. I know GTech sometimes I try to, but I'm not sure it's effective. You must have a system where there's policy coherence, national research that says that within the next 5, 10, 20 years, that's the area we are going, and these are the kind of skills we require. And so, with public institutions, these are the areas that you must train people. And when people even realize that these are areas where they can easily get jobs, even private universities will begin to follow suit. Like if you just Google now, they will tell you in the United States the 10 top programs that can easily get you a job. You can be sure that universities will now be diverting their resources into those areas, and that is what I think that the ministry must do. Basically do the research and say these are the areas, and encourage universities, put incentives there. So if it's agriculture we need, then these are the programs that we must offer.
I think the flip side too is that many of those countries also include what jobs are available in the area in which you graduate from.
Yes.
So if you're graduating from Agric, it will tell you the positions in Agric that you could actually aspire to. And in some cases, even what the salary levels are, so you know what you're getting into. So, Prof, welcome. Please, could your guest elaborate much on how teachers can be motivated? So, like in the classroom, they say intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, the hygiene factors and the satisfiers. Usually when you mention motivation, the first thing that comes to mind is money, but I do not think that necessarily so. Now, we should understand something. When you take a teacher to, or any worker for that matter, to rural areas, that person has a family. They are concerned about a place to educate their children. They are concerned about a good hospital. They are concerned about having a place where they can shop. The reason why you go to Brasi and you have a lot of experts there, because they're able to provide those basic things. So even though they are not in Kumasi, Accra, they are sure to get good education for their children. They are sure to get a good hospital, recreational facilities and all of that. I believe strongly these are necessities, so that if somebody offers to go to Salaga or to Damongo or to Ketu, you must ensure that those basic things are available, that my child can have good education and I can have a good hospital for my family. And when we need to take the children out, you have a small place where they can go have fun and come back. So long as you don't have those things, it's a problem. For example, if the person needs a passport, why does he have to apply to Accra? Why is it that basic things he still has to come to Accra or Kumasi? The districts must provide, so that reasonably people don't feel left out when they move out of Accra. And I dare say that when somebody, maybe do it now, I'm not too sure, once you serve outside Accra, and especially in the rural areas, there must be motivation for serving in that area. And you say you should serve there at least minimum 5 years, and then you rotate. You can apply that to doctors and everybody. Okay, so there's another question here from Jojo Williams. Hello, Talking Point. Is it possible to have public universities in our region teaching our relevant courses such as medicine, pharmacy, engineering, and applied science, law, business administration, he goes on, and tie automatic admissions and free tuition to every student who attended free SHS in that region? And also for graduates to serve national service in that region. The curriculum should be relevant to the needs of the respective region, and national services should help enhance the human resource of the same region. It will also ease pressure on free SHS admissions to the currently popular SHS in favor of those in lesser known regions due to the opportunity for tertiary admissions. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so well, the other side is the fact that universities are supposed to have specialization and decentralization. What they call mission creep should be avoided. By that, what they mean is that each university is supposed to have their focus areas. So if you offer this program, you cannot move to other areas. But what we see now is that the universities are all doing all kinds of programs. When at the time we are going to go to university, if you say science-based programs, it's KUST. The liberal arts, you are University of Ghana. And then of course, the teacher programs, you go to UCC. Now virtually everybody is doing everything, and you can understand because the universities have to run, and so they look at where the cash is, and then we go there and all of that. And for me, yes, each region may have its own university and all of that, but they cannot do all the programs. You can't have a university doing all the programs. They must focus on their speciality. So this is what you are mandated to do, and then you focus on that and do it. It doesn't really matter if a person moves from one region to the other. But the point is that what that means is that each region will have students moving. I know that the US is big, so people usually attend universities in their states. We are small country regions, but I personally believe that, for example, the boarding house system, where I went to Pempe College, I mean from requirements, Pempe College, etc., you meet all kinds of people and you relate. So if a person moves from one region to the other, it's part of the tourism, and then you will tolerate others more. But the point is that maybe I would rather suggest that when you are investing in the regions, they must focus on particular areas, so that when people move across Ghana, they will go to that region. So it doesn't have to be the university offering all programs, but they specialize. So if I move from Accra to Tamale, I know that because of this program. And if I move from Kumasi to Accra, I know that because of this program. So you will distribute the students across the country.
And I think more important, when you use the US analogy, the development across the country is also plays a role also in terms of the comparison. I'm going to run through a few of these things as we have some questions coming in and our time is running out. This is from Siemens. Hi, please tell your guests that urging students to do what they are really cut out for is an old notion and cannot stand in this era of excessively large numbers of students all fighting for a place in tertiary. It's too late. The grading system is what has come to stay. And then Isaac Asasi, you see from Kwantumi, we have lost the idea of training for the middle level manpower of our economy. We're always thinking about academic progression and getting a higher certificate. Technical education and technician courses have all been collapsed. But then this but Ajikwenu, G.S. Lammeo. Good evening, host. Prof keeps saying teachers at pre-tertiary level should be motivated. We don't need any motivation. We need to be given the same conditions the government have given to our friends in other agencies. And then another comment here is monetization of BECE leading to exam leakage of questions encouraged by private schools is a challenge. And finally, good evening. I am a student of Accra Technical University. I want to ask Prof some of the disadvantages of offering an HND course and not doing any top-up after your final year at the tertiary level.
The part of that, the first person made a comment and said, it's a good notion, people do what they are cut out for. So if you are not cut out for that, what do you want to do? You want to do something that will bring you problems. Each person has their strengths and weaknesses. So when you are offered counseling, you look at yourself and do something that, etc. And I think that's even the problem we have, where people think that, and medicine, but to become a doctor means that it's about, so then
it's about empathy.
You don't need to make, with your 8As, you don't need to do medicine if you are not cut off for medicine. But what it is that people are making 8As, and because they made 8As, then we say, oh, go and read medicine. Somebody can do communications because that is what is cut out for. And so I'm not too sure about that question. And then HND.
Some of the disadvantages of offering HND course are not doing any top-up after your final year.
So let's broaden it. It's not just about HND. It's whether degree or whatever. The key point is when you want to